Flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pursuant to section, this is not. Pursuant to section 5, chapter 231, Public Laws, 1975. This is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on the bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing the annual notice of regular meetings for 2018 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2017, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Mr. Adams? Here. Mr. Daffis?
Here.
Mr. Lembrick?
Here. Good night, Cece.
Mr. McGee?
Here.
Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231, Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public, and whereas Section 7A provides that the governing body has a discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas the desire of the governing body to comply with the provision of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee, Township Maplewood does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in the deliberations of the governing body by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public to the observations of the actions and discussions of the governing body at all its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Welcome to our September 4th meeting of 2018. I'm going to run through the agenda and let you know what you're in for if you stay through the whole thing. The first, we're going to have a presentation on the retirement of one of our firefighters, and Ms. Viveros is going to deal with that. Next, we have our boards and committee appointments. We have appointments for the Youth Advisory Committee. Mr. Daffis will deal with that. And we have our Recreation Advisory Committee. Mr. Lembrick will deal with those. We have our first public comment period. If you're here to talk about any issue, you can come up at that time and give us your name and address and share your concerns with us. But if you're here to talk about the bags, the paper and plastic bags, that's going to come a little later. So we'd ask if you hold your comments until we get to that. And I'll again remind you when we get to the public comment session. After the public comment session, we'll have our Board of Health meeting, and then we will start dealing with ordinances. First, the one on final, and that is where we have the paper bag ordinance. So if you're here to talk about the paper bag or plastic bag ordinance, that is item number 9 on the agenda, and we'll ask you to come up at that time to speak on that issue. We have 2 ordinances we're introducing. One is to install stop signs at Rutgers and Lexington. There'll be a 4-way stop there. And the other is a stop sign on Berkshire at Baldwin. We have 7 discussion items. We'll be talking about affordable housing, our park closing times, the state legislation to permit adult use of marijuana. We'll be talking about an event application at the Woodland. Again, at the Woodland, the west side, I think those may be the same issue. Yeah. Partial tax payments, and then the paid time or personal time off donation policy. Then we have a rather full consent agenda because this is the time that we are able to award contracts and purchase equipment. We have some equipment we're buying for the fire department, airbag lifting, a laundry to deal with some of the gear that has to get washed after a fire, vehicle stabilization equipment. And that's all for the fire department. We're awarding a contract for heating, cooling company work. We're approving online tax sales, authorizing mailing fees, awarding a contract for a new jitney. amending a resolution for our affordable housing planning services, approving a contract for removal of brush, leaves, and tree parts. We'll be approving the payment of bills, authorizing transfers between different accounts. Let's see, we'll be approving a contract for a decorative fence on Baker Street, purchasing asphalt, purchasing a Ford C-Max hybrid vehicle. We'll be awarding a contract for wood safety surfacing and the roadway improvement program. Let's see, plastic timber borders. This is for our park program, playground equipment, and again, installation of playground, both purchase and installation. We'll be approving minutes of August 7th, both opening and closed. Open and closed. Then after the consent agenda, which goes real quick, we have a second public comment period. Then we'll have administrative reports from elected officials, and then we will go home. But you are allowed to leave at any time during the meeting once it gets too much for you, or once the reason you're here is no longer a reason. So, but we invite you to stay for as long as you'd like. So the first, I'm going to ask Ms. Alves Viveros to come up or go to the microphone and do the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things that I'd like to do as the new business administrator is commend many of our employees who retire after, I would say, a good amount of years of dedication to the township. So as a matter of practice, you happen, Mr. Dennis Wiest happens to be our first guinea pig in this go around. So I would like to recognize him for his 25 years of service as a Maplewood firefighter. And just a couple of things about Mr. Wiest is he started in the reserves in 1990. He's been with the township since 1993. He has served as for several years as the FMBA treasurer. One of the things after speaking to several of the firefighters is that he's described as a team player who's well liked by everyone who worked with him. His integrity, calm demeanor, job knowledge, and commitment to the department allowed him to excel as a firefighter and serve as a mentor to younger members of the fire department. So as you can see, after 25 years, I'm sure they are sad to see him go, but surely he will have a lot more fun, maybe on a on some excursion or whatnot. So typically what we do in the township, we actually have our employee picnic coming up, is for increments of 5 years, we give this pin to our township employees. And this happens to be a 25-year pin that we'd like to present to him, just to honor him for his dedication to the township. So thank you.
Say thank you for the opportunity to let me serve the town, and I'm going to miss it.
Thank you. So I see you have some family members. Why don't you introduce your family members?
My brother Eugene, my wife Dorothy, my mom, and my son.
So
Dennis.
we want to thank you for sharing him with us for 25 years. I know it's difficult every time he goes out the door. You want to make sure he comes back safe, but now you're going to have him all the time. So
Whether you want
maybe you're going to find him a job. You never know. But we really want to thank you, and I know a lot of your colleagues. I saw the trucks pulling up as we were starting, so they all wanted to be here to recognize you. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.
I just wanted to echo what Ms.
Why don't you say who you are?
Deputy Chief Nugent, Maplewood Fire Department. I was the supervisor on Dennis's crew for a bunch of the last years that he had with the department. It was an honor. But just to echo what you mentioned there, as far as with the members on the department and as a supervisor, of firefighter Weiss was there's a trust factor in the firehouse and at emergency scenes that we all rely on one another. And you've all heard the saying that none of us are as strong as all of us. But when firefighter Weiss was part of all of us, he just made all of us that much stronger. He had a confidence that just bred to all the other members on the crew, that when you operate in those conditions and those scenarios and just work the way he does and as calm as he does, it just flows onto the other members. And it was absolutely a pleasure to be the supervisor. It was just an honor. Thank you.
So thank you. Thank you, Chief. Our next item is item number 6, and that's boards and committees and our Youth Advisory Committee, and Mr. Daffis.
Thank you, Mayor. I am delighted to introduce to all of you this evening the 7 prospective members, first members of our brand new Youth Advisory Committee. This is an opportunity for the youth in our community to continue being agents of change, to lend their voice to the local issues that are important to them in the community, and to help shape the future of our community. We received a very enthusiastic response of applications from the community. We will continue accepting applications on a rolling basis, as we suspect that certain students might become overconsumed as the school year proceeds with their school responsibilities and their activities outside of school. But we're very, very excited to introduce tonight our first prospective members. As I call your name, please come up to the microphone. Let's start a line up there. There's 7 of you. And then I'm going to ask each of you to state your name, tell us what grade you're in, where you go to school, and why you're interested in serving on the Youth Advisory Committee. We have Justin Strugger, Phoebe Hill, Lily Harlick, Miles Trumbull, Dylan James, Dylan Reese Denouzer, or Denouzer. I apologize if I'm butchering your names. You can correct me when it's your turn to speak up there. And Bernadette Clausen. Wonderful. So, Justin, get us started.
I'm Justin Struger. I'm in 8th grade. I'm 14, and I go to Maplewood Middle School. And I'm interested in this committee because I believe it's a great opportunity to represent my peers and their ideas. And I think I will really listen to their ideas and use it to change my community for the better.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Phoebe?
Hi, my name is Phoebe Hill. I'm 14. I'm going into my 9th grade at Columbia High School. I live in Maplewood. So I'm interested in becoming a member of this committee because I feel it's a really good way for me to be able to represent my peers and for me to do better in this community. I've been working with Stoma Action a lot over the past year, and it's helped me realize how much youth can do in our community and in our modern day world. So I think it's important that youth are involved, and I really want to be able to get my other peers involved in advocacy.
Thank you, Phoebe. Lily?
Hi, I'm Lily Harla. I'm 14. I'm going into 9th grade at Columbia High School. I think I would like to join this committee because I think it's so important, especially in these times that youth are given a voice, because you see so many awful things happening in the world and nobody's really trying to change anything. And I think that youth really, we are the future. And I think that even on a small scale, we can begin to change things. And I think that's really important.
Well said, Lily. Thank you. And Dylan?
I'm Miles. I don't know.
Oh, Miles. Sorry, I skipped. Yes, that's right, Miles. Sorry about that.
I'm Miles Trumbull. I'm 15, and I'm becoming a sophomore at Columbia High School. And I'm just interested in joining the committee because this is my 2nd year at the school district, and I care about this community. I've always just wanted to make a change, and I was given an opportunity to do so. So I just want to take that opportunity and run with it.
Thank you.
I am Dylan James. I am a junior at Oratory Prep. I believe it's important as a youth member to just make an impact in your community and add a different perspective that I guess adults sometimes don't have.
Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you.
My name is Bernadette Clausen. I'm going to be a senior at Columbia High School this year. I had the fortunate opportunity to intern at Assemblyman McKeon's office this summer, and it was one of the most enriching experiences I've had so far because I do care so much about our local government, but that I know that local government can make a bigger impact than many perceive. So I wanted to take the opportunity to apply to be on the Youth Advisory Committee here because I would really like to continue my work with local government and make the change that I would like to see. As a colleague said, youth are the future, and if we want the future to be something we would like, it's good to take action when we can and produce what we would like to see in the future.
Thank you, Bernadette.
Thank you. When are y'all running for office?
I think you are all very fine examples of what youth can do. You're already doing it. You're not just the future, you are the present. And I move to appoint Justin Strugger, Phoebe Hill, Lily Harlick, Miles Trumbull, Dylan James, and Bernadette Clausen to the Youth Advisory Committee.
Second.
We are missing one person, however. We are missing Dylan Reese Denauser. Any chance she came in after we started?
Can we appoint her an absentia?
It's up to you.
I think we can appoint Dylan at the next, we'll wait for September 17th.
So it's been moved and seconded for the 6th. Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams? Yes. Thank you. Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you all.
Congratulations.
So to let you know who you're going to be working with, we would like to get a motion to appoint Mr. Daffis as the liaison to the committee and Mr. McGehee as the alternate liaison to the
So
committee.
moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams? Yes. Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr.
You can
Lembrick?
vote for yourself.
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay. So next up, we have Recreation Committee, or Advisory Committee appointments. Mr. Lembrick?
Yes, we have 5 openings on the Recreation Advisory Committee, and we had a number of local residents who have stepped up and are excited to fill those vacancies, and a number of them are here tonight, and we want to appoint all 5 of those who stepped up. Not all of them could be here tonight, but the 5 people we'd like to appoint are Jean Sim, Susan Bergen, Kathleen Mitchell, Jermaine Kripe, and Tamara Carroll. So any of you who are here, please step up to the microphone.
You have to tell us what grade you're in and what school you went to.
That's okay.
Talk about your athletics, whatever.
If each of you could just give us your name and also tell us why you're interested in joining the Recreation Advisory Committee.
Sure. I'm Jean Sim. I've been a resident of Maplewood for 8 years. I've been a mom who's driven her 3 kids around to pretty much every single recreation activity I think offered through both of our townships. I wanted to get involved because, having been a participant in some of these activities, I think there's certainly a breadth of, opportunities offered, but there's some ways that things can be improved. Also, I think recently just wanting to get more involved with my community, wanting to make a difference and making sure that there's, an equitable and representative slate of activities for the youth in our community and for the adults too.
That's terrific.
My name is Jermaine Kripe. I've been a resident of Maplewood for almost 15 years. I'm not going to give you my grade because I would take that. But I have, like Ms. Sims said, been a member of this community and participated in many of the activities that have happened or have been a part of teams and community events. And I realized that I knew people who were involved in the planning of things, but I didn't really know all the details that went into it. And I kind of felt like if there was something I needed to contribute as far as complaints or concerns, I should be a part of the committee to know what it's about before I actually start complaining. So I decided to step forward because I would like to learn more about how the community works, how the recreation community recreational committee can actually help improve the connections between our community, in particular, folks from one side of Springfield towards the other. As a resident of the Hilton neighborhood, I do find that oftentimes our community is left out of things, not intentionally. And so I'd like to act in many ways to be a voice for that side of town, because there's a lot of folks that really enjoy the Rex programs, and knowing about them sooner or from a voice that maybe they feel a little more comfortable hearing from would be helpful.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tamara Carroll. I'm almost a 16-year resident of Maplewood, and the reason why I wanted to participate on this committee really has to do with a lot of the positive experiences that my two boys have had since we've been here in almost every aspect of the recreation department, from basketball to swimming to, my husband has been a coach as well. So we've had such a great experience, and throughout my own life, and as far as participating when I was growing up in the recreation, different recreational activities. I think it's had such a strong impact as far as, my perseverance and who I've become, and not only, the physical benefits, but emotional and social. So I really wanted to grab this opportunity as far as trying to ensure that other folks, throughout the whole community will have that type of opportunity that I had as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move the appointment of the three women here tonight, Jean Sim, Jermaine Kripe, and Tamara Carroll, as well as Susan Bergen and Kathleen Mitchell, who couldn't make it tonight due to other obligations. So those five to the Recreation Advisory Committee.
I'll second that.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for stepping up. Thank you.
Okay, we're now at our first public comment period. Again, this is on issues that you want to talk to us about other than the bag ordinance. That's going to be a separate public hearing. So if there's anyone who would like to address the Township Committee, please come on up and give us your name and your address.
Good evening, my name is Rick McNeilis. My wife and I have lived in town for the past 40 years. I'm an architect, retired, semi-retired architect. I copied all of you on a memo regarding Simon. It's just one of those issues that I've never gotten any answers about. What my questions are, who reports sidewalk flaws? Is it an official that goes around and checks these sidewalks, or is it your neighbor?
It's both. Both.
Yeah.
We have inspectors that drive around, and we've also received complaints from people that walk or use the sidewalk.
Because it seems pretty sporadic. Yeah, my next door neighbor was cited. We were cited several years ago. People across the street were cited. Some people down the block were cited, and yet if you walk around, there's still uneven sidewalks. So it's not an even reporting of what the conditions are. Secondly, the conditions have a lot to do with the trees that are growing. The root systems are typically uplifting slabs. What is the town's responsibility other than cutting the roots when people go to replace their sidewalks?
So you can get someone to lift the slabs where the roots are raising the slab. You work with the DPW, they'll work with you, your contractor. When you lift the slabs, they'll come and cut the roots, and then you have your contractor put the slab back down.
Okay, but the fact that it's a town tree lifting the slab, the town has no responsibility towards repair of a slab that's lifted strictly due to root system.
I think what we do is what we said. I let our attorney answer. I don't want to make a legal opinion here, but that's the process we use, is that if it's a town tree lifting it up, we'll be responsible to remove the roots that are causing the problem.
Okay. And in my memo that I submitted to you all, some years ago, South Orange tried an approach where they negotiated a fixed unit cost with 3 contractors. If you were a resident, you didn't have to negotiate. You just said, I want my sidewalk replaced, and you had a fixed unit cost, probably better than anything you can negotiate individually. Then I submitted an article from a local paper down at the shore from Belmar, where they are now asking residents, do you want your sidewalk repaired? You say yes, the town will repair the sidewalk. I don't know if the township itself does it or whether they put this out to contracting, and then they bill you through your property taxes. Not one fell swoop, but over a period of time.
Right.
And I just throw that out as an idea, suggestion, or possibly implementing it here in Maplewood.
We have done some of that in the past. The Belmar, what you gave us from Belmar is a little different than what we've done. We've done one block when we were doing work there. We got an agreement before, since we had the contractors there. This was Alden Place, where we did a special assessments for all the blocks, but it was a very small block. It only had maybe 7 or 8 homes. With the thing you've showed us from Belmar, this looks like they put money in their capital budget and they hire somebody and then you apply. And then there must be some, we don't know the parameters of it, whether it's unlimited or there's a certain amount that they'll do per homeowner. So we'd have to take a look at that, because that means allocating money in our capital budget, essentially doing the work and then getting paid back. So it's almost like a loan to the property owner.
It's a special
using
assessment.
our, well, it's different because it's not, we're providing it and you're paying us back. We'd have to take a look. We haven't had this conversation with our attorney yet. But we,
see the township committee look into it.
We can discuss it at Engineering and Public Works. I'm not sure about the one in South Orange. I can check what happened there, but typically what happens is if there's a project ongoing, the residents are made aware that they can use the contractor if they want to repair their sidewalks and it's not already part of the project, that they can do it at the rate that the contractor is already on site, or alternatively negotiate with that contractor by themselves when they're on site and ask them to do it for the same rate. It's usually that kind of thing, but I can find out more.
But I recall having them bring on 3 contractors, 3 unit costs to do sidewalk, all the same, but better rates than you would get as an individual.
Right.
Did they discontinue that program?
Oh,
This was years ago, I think, yeah.
There was not a consistent program. It was a one-time thing. Okay.
And are you familiar with the liability issues in circumstances like that? I haven't looked at the Belmar ordinance or what they're doing there closely. I wonder if the homeowner who applies for this agrees to hold the township not liable for any damage that may occur to their property in situations like that, because now you're entering into a contract with the township. Are you aware of?
I could find out. We don't have a house down there. We're nearby.
Does any one of my colleagues know the answer to that question? Okay.
Spoken like a true attorney.
Okay. So, I mean, I think it's an interesting idea. I thank you for bringing it forth, and we'll look into it and discuss it.
We'll definitely discuss it at Engineering and Public Works. So.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
So please come back next month. We'll have an assessment for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Good evening, Jeanette Page Hawkins, Essex County Representative. And I'd just like to bring the attention to Township Committee on a couple of different things that are taking place this fall. First is the 9/11 ceremony that's going to be taking place on 9/11 at 8 o'clock at the Eagle Rock Memorial. And it's open to the public, and it's remembering those that we lost during the 9/11 crisis. So
that's AM, right?
It's AM. And the autumn events is out, and if you'll indulge me, I'll just highlight a few things that I think that folks will be most interested in. The Essex County Senior Wellness Day, well-attended, seniors from all around comes, free transportation, and that's held up at the Richard Cody Arena. And it's from 8 to 2. And I hope that's not right. Oh, no, it's not. Breakfast and lunch is served, a lot of games and different, they get bags of vegetables and things like that when they leave. Also, the household hazardous waste collection is going to be taking place October 6th. And at the new dog park in North Caldwell, October 21st, it's going to be Stretch Your Mutt. And the Essex County Canine Costume Parade will be taking place. And there'll be prizes and et cetera for, I guess, the best dressed funny dog there is. And then there's the Safe Halloween, and that's October 31st, and that's going to be at the Turtleback Zoo. And treats and tricks and et cetera, and the zoo is open at that time. Also, I don't know if you all know that there's a new flamingo exhibit there as well. Very beautiful, very nice. And so before you at this point in time, is there anything that I can assist you with? Please let me know.
What was the date of that event on October 6th again? The household? What was the location rather, October 6th?
The household is October 6th, and it's going to be at Fairview Avenue in Cedar Grove, the old hospital.
Okay.
And Ms. Hawkins, the Senior Wellness Day at the Richard Cody Arena from 8 to 2 p.m. What day is that, please?
That is, I'm sorry, September 18th.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Needs?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee?
Hi, good evening, Shannon Cuttle, Maplewood. I just wanted to make a comment and say that to thank the Township Committee for instituting the Youth Advisory Committee. I think it's going to be a very powerful tool for our community to connect our young people with learning leadership skills. So thank you for that. And I just want to congratulate all of the Youth Advisory Committee members that will be appointed this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee? There'll be another time after that, after our ordinances and the consent agenda. Okay, thanks. We'll close that. We're going to go into our Board of Health meeting. Mr. McGeehee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, Public Laws Act of 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting and maintaining the annual notice of regular meetings on a bulletin board of the municipal building, by mailing annual notice of regular meetings for 2018 to the News Record and Star Ledger in December 2017, and by filing said notice in the office of the Township Clerk.
Ms. Adams?
Here.
Mr. Daffis?
Here.
Mr. Lembrick?
Here.
Mayor DeLuca?
Here.
President McGeehee?
Here.
Whereas Chapter 231 Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Open Public Meetings Act, requires that all meetings of public bodies be open to the public. And whereas Section 7 provides that the Board of Health has the discretion to permit, prohibit, or regulate the active participation of the public at any meeting, and whereas desire the Maplewood Board of Health to comply with the provisions of this act, same time to conduct its business in an orderly and expeditious manner, now therefore be resolved by the Maplewood Board of Health, Township of Maplewood, does hereby prohibit, except as set forth in the formal agenda, active participation in deliberations of the Board of Health by the public, and except as otherwise prescribed by law, does limit the public the observation of the action and discussions of the Board of Health at all of its regular and special meetings.
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
President McGeehee?
Yes. I will now entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our August 7, 2018 meeting.
President McGeehee, I move that we approve the minutes of the Maplewood Board of Health for the August 7th, 2018 meeting.
Second.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
President McGeehee?
Yes. Mr. Rowe.
say something before we go to number 5?
Sure.
Is I'd like to thank Ms. Hawkins from the county. I think you helped expedite getting rid of some debris on Chancellor Avenue. So thank you for that. It was a mess. Thank you. It's a county road, and she helped us cut through the bureaucracy.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Mr. Rowe, can we get an update on mosquito spraying for residential property, sir?
Yes, I've continued to talk to people. I've talked to beekeepers. I talked to kind of the person who's the top beekeeper in the state at the Department of Agriculture. I've talked to different pesticide control companies. I'm contacted the DEP chief of pesticides I want to talk to him about this situation to see if he has any opinion. It seems like most of the people I talk to all express concern that there's a possibility that this may be hurting honeybees and non-target insects, but nobody was quite to the point where they said, stop, don't do that. So I want to continue to pursue it and study it and see if we can come up with some good, valid reason for either doing it or not doing it. I don't think we're quite there yet. One of the things the beekeepers told me was anywhere you can plant flowers, please do it, because the bees love flowers. So I'm just thinking in some of our parks or other little pockets of public place, that might become a good policy to do that when we can.
Taking into account that we're in September, is there any seasonality involved here?
Yeah, I think the bees stay active as long as it's not freezing. And even in the winter, sometimes they go out. The beehives go from, I've learned more about bees than I ever thought. Go from about 15,000 in a hive over the winter to maybe up to 50,000 during the summer when they're out gathering pollen and making honey. But then as the fall comes along, the population decreases. So there's not too many, and back to maybe 15,000 so they can survive the winter. Something like that. And I know one of the concerns we had was spraying either during the day or whether we should only allow spraying at night. And one of the things that, again, that I've learned with bees is that on these hot nights like tonight or like we've had last week, a lot of the bees don't even go in the hive. They just stay outside the hive or near the hive. So if spraying is done near a honeybee hive and there's drift, it can kill them if this concentration of the spray is too high. So, Western Pest Control, which is one of the best pest control companies in the state, in my opinion, they've offered to come and meet with us and to talk about how they do it and what they see as potential problems. So I'd like to take them up on that. And so I'll be sending out emails to find the time that's convenient for as many people as possible. So I'll be doing that this week. I'll get the emails out and hopefully we can arrange a meeting where we can ask all the tough questions.
That's great. Ms. Adams, any comments?
No, I think if we need to move forward with more information so we can base our decision on something solid.
Yeah, like I said, all the experts said, oh, this could be a problem.
Yeah, well, as we know.
But they haven't said don't do it yet.
Yeah, as we know, though, these things proliferate.
Yes.
You weren't landscaping companies on every property 20 years ago, but they're everywhere now, so.
And the other thing that lawn companies do is they put herbicides on your grass. They kill the pollen. I mean, they kill the clover. They kill the dandelions.
Right.
And these are all food for insects and honeybees. So what you've created is, as far as a honeybee is concerned, is a desert. If you have a perfectly green manicured lawn with no weeds on it, it's really a desert for insects and honeybees. Yep. So I know we've talked about that at the environmental committee a lot, and we've periodically done publicity campaigns on, not using so many herbicides on your lawn, cut it and leave it with the grass. And so I think we just have to keep up the public education on that. I don't know that we'll ever convince everybody, but we should try to convince as many people as possible.
Yeah.
Mr. Rowe, what time at night does the county spray?
When they spray, and I'm not sure they spray that much. If they find what they think is too many mosquitoes, and I really don't know exactly how they determine that, but they do have traps around town and all around the county. They go around in a truck at night. So it's wide broadcast spraying, not what somebody does in their backyard. And
Not in residential areas or near the parks or?
in residential areas, and they use an ultralight pesticide, a pyrethrin type pesticide that has a very short active life. It's not a residual type pesticide as some others are.
And what time of night approximately?
Middle of the night. You
Like
wouldn't
3
even
in the
know they're
morning.
there. And they do it before morning. So there's enough hours before morning so that when people are coming out, the residual is dried up and is harmless. They do that for a quick knockdown of the adult insects. They also do it when they, as I explained before, the insects they catch in the traps. First, they sort them to see what kind of mosquitoes are, because there's about 20 types of mosquitoes in our county. And they also test them for disease. So if they find West Nile virus, then they'll come out and fog the area around multiple blocks around the area where the trap showed disease. And again, the reason is to stop the spread of disease and for a quick knockdown of the adult mosquitoes. It's not permanent, but that's what they do. The other thing they do, which they haven't had to do this summer too much, is when we haven't had rain for a long time, the water will sit stagnant in the storm drains. And I don't know, you've probably seen them. They go around with a little truck and the guy sticks his thing out the door. And what that is, it's oil, so that the mosquitoes can't come to the surface and breathe. And then the other time they do it, once in a while that I've seen them do this, is when we have little woodsy areas in Maplewood, not just residential, but sometimes we have patches of wood that's kind of a no man's land between houses. On occasion, they'll come out and do backpack spraying during the day to try to knock down a high population of mosquitoes in that area. It's not permanent, but it helps for a while.
Thank you. And in your expert opinion, do you find that what the county does, how they do it, when they do it, is not enough, that we need to act here locally to do more?
I think a lot of people do. My opinion is we don't need to do the backyard spraying, but certainly a lot of residents, there's no law against it, and a lot of residents have opted for that service to try to reduce mosquito nuisance around their home. As I recall, we used to put the insect repellent on ourselves if we were going to be out at night, and maybe some little citronella candles or something to try to reduce it. So this is really a different approach than what was done in the past. Now they're trying to kill the mosquitoes in the bushes, but they also may be killing non-target insects, as opposed to just protecting yourself when you go outside. It's a whole nother approach to trying to control mosquitoes for the individual family. Maybe it's a good thing. I don't think it is, though. I think there's plenty of warning signs on this one, and we should keep after it and see whether it is indeed a bad thing.
Great. Have you spoken to some of the sprayers, the companies that do this?
Yeah,
I've spoken to True Green. I've spoken to Mosquito Squad. Those are and the Western Pest Control.
Gotcha.
And they contend it's safe and that they're providing a service that the residents want.
Did your discussions include whether or not it would affect their business or their operation or their staffing? If they would, let's say that we were able to educate all of our residents accordingly, that if you hire one of these things, great, get rid of the mosquitoes in your backyard, but don't do it until the evening hours. Would they be okay with that?
I've talked to them about that idea, and what I've heard from a couple of them, and it sounds very reasonable, is they don't like the idea of having their employees walk around at night in people's backyards. There's like fall and too easy to fall. And then the additional thing, which I've thought about, is if there's not sufficient light, they may be spraying the wrong thing. So during the daylight, at least they can see what they're spraying. At night, you know, they could be hitting flowering plants and not even realize it because it's dark.
Great, thank you.
So, yeah.
Okay. Update on State Health Commission meeting?
Last week or week before, we had a very good meeting with the State Health Commissioner. It was the first time I talked to a lot of the old timers in my book, and I'm an old timer now, so these are the older timers. And they said a meeting like this hasn't happened for at least 50 years, where a State Health Commissioner would actually come and talk to the local health officers. So I commend the commissioner and the governor if that was part of his planning. We talked about lead poisoning. Another thing that became the topic conversation was the possible legalization of marijuana for recreational use. And a couple of good ideas came up and that I hope the commissioner is able to take to the legislature. And one was for plan educational efforts before the sale starts. Like tobacco and like tobacco. It's legal, but it's in alcohol. It's legal, but it's not necessarily good for you. And it's the same with marijuana. It may be legal, may not hurt you right away, but it's not good for you either. Or for most people, it's not good. There may be some people who benefit from it, but most people, it will probably have a detrimental effect, maybe not permanently, but at least for a while. And so one of the ideas was to plan ahead on this, and so that when recreational marijuana, if it becomes legal, we have an education campaign in place to go to tell people, teenagers, if you're listening, that this is not a good thing. I firmly believe that it inhibits your ability to learn. And that's one of the main things. You may feel relaxed, but you're just not going to be as sharp as you need to be. That's one man's opinion on it. And the other idea that seemed really very good idea is also plan to have a study on it, so like an academic study, university study, to see, is this working? If it's bad, how bad is it? Or how bad is it not? So, you know, have an independent group to actually study what's going on. Is this a disaster that we've made, or is it not so bad? And then, you know, after a few years, hopefully we would know whether we've made a bad decision or not.
So the state commission moved forward trying to get this to the legislature, or he's just talking?
Well, these were ideas that were presented by local health officers to the state commissioner, and they seem like very good ideas to me. So I just wanted to report it to you.
Okay. Right.
He was busy taking notes. and he also had a couple of partners there taking notes too. So I hope he takes that back to the legislature.
Okay. Update on Municipal Alliance.
Municipal Alliance is off and running again on the new grant year. The police have already had 2 movies as part of our police youth program. They've had their national night out, and they'll be holding a barbecue for returning school children. I'm not sure which age or group of kids they're planning on having it with, but that's what they're going to be doing in the next few weeks. And the Alliance will help them with costs on that if needed.
Okay.
And other than that, we're off and running on a new year, grant year, with all the programs that I also recommended to the committee 2 people to make appointments. I don't know if you saw that. Maybe it slipped by with all the youth committee members, but I'll refresh your memory on a couple of people I'd like to see appointed to the Municipal Alliance.
Okay. I saw you sent the report in, a little uptick in deaths in Maplewood, but the statistics, the numeral report, any particular highlights you want to bring to our attention this evening?
Right. Mr. McGehee, I sent this late this afternoon. You may not have even looked at it yet, but Mr. McGehee asked that I prepare a report like this for the whole year so you can see trends. Certainly at the beginning of the year, we're going to be doing more licensing. Certain times a year, you have more of certain activities than others. I don't know that diseases are going to vary that much, reportable diseases, flu in the wintertime, but other than that, the diseases are pretty much year round. Often think of measles as a springtime disease, but it's not high numbers. And that's my report. I think it's the biggest audience we've ever had for Board of Health.
I think I got bitten by a mosquito.
Yeah.
And, thank you, Mr. Rowe. Any additional questions for Mr. Rowe from my colleagues? No?
I have none.
No, thank you, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will now invite the public to ask any questions of the Board of Health. Please come to the mic and present your name and address if you'd like to. All right. Seeing no one, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President, let's adjourn this meeting of the Maplewood Board of Health.
Second.
Mr. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes.
President McGehee?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, we're back to the main agenda. We're on item number 9. This is an ordinance on final passage.
Mayor, item number 9, ordinance on final passage, ordinance number 2923-18. An ordinance requiring retail establishments within the Township of Maplewood to collect a pass-through charge from customers requesting disposable paper and plastic checkout bags. The purpose of this ordinance is to reduce the use of disposable paper and plastic checkout bags by retail establishments in the Township of Maplewood.
So we're now going to have the any public comments on this particular ordinance, and this is the paper and plastic bag ordinance. So this ordinance has been published, copies posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, and copies made available to the general public in accordance with the law. So if you'd like to say something, again, you can come up, speak specifically about this ordinance, give us your name and your address and your thoughts.
Hi, my name is Kurt Kiley, 506 Summit Avenue. I am the chair of the Maplewood Senior Advisory Committee.
I'm India Larrier. I'm the secretary of the Maplewood Senior Advisory Committee, 68 Midland Boulevard, Maplewood.
On behalf of the Senior Advisory Committee, we are coming out against the bag tax. It disproportionately impacts seniors, most of which our senior population is on a fixed income and trying to stretch every penny and having to pay an additional 10 cents a bag fee while trying to shop local. Disproportionately impacts our seniors. Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
No, and thank you also for the email.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address this issue?
Good evening. My name's Mary Ann Kledgman. I'm here representing King Supermarkets from 159 Maplewood Avenue in Maplewood. I'm asking that the town not enact a disposable bag ordinance requiring retailers to charge a fee for disposable bags. All supermarkets and retailers should be able to compete on a similar playing field. This 10-cent fee per disposable bag puts King's Maplewood at a competitive disadvantage to nearby supermarkets in neighboring towns. Stores like Whole Foods in Union, 1.8 miles away from us, and Ashley's Market in South Orange, 1.6 miles away, will automatically be cheaper for customers to shop when this is in effect. My company operates 2 stores in the area, and many customers cross-shop between our Short Hills location and our Maplewood location. They will not understand why there are differing fees in place. Charging a customer fees for the use of disposable bags will not be popular, and the explanation of the ordinance will fall on our employees at the time of checkout. These employees will then need to slow down lines to explain the why of the fee and also be subject to customers' reaction or pushback that will undoubtedly occur. This makes shopping in the Maplewood Kings less convenient. In our business, we understand that customers appreciate choice, They will now have a choice to shop where they will not be charged for disposable bags. The supermarket business is referred to as a penny business, meaning that we make very slim margins on everything we sell. By enacting a pass-through charge for checkout bags in Maplewood, you are putting King's at a competitive disadvantage. At the village visioning session on July 24th, it was evident that the residents of Maplewood value having a market and other retail shops in the center of town. At King's, we believe this fee will be another reason for shoppers to go elsewhere for their groceries and other retail purchases.
Could I just ask one thing?
Sure.
King's is not a bargain supermarket, am I right? No. So is it, because I don't know that I could see a King's customer going somewhere else to pay, so that not to pay 10 cents on a bag when they're not being forced to pay 10 cents on a bag. It's only if they're not bringing their own reusable bags. So that's understood. And King's could sell their own reusable bags, correct?
Correct.
So is King's willing to think about lowering some of their food prices, 10 cents an item, to counter that competitive disadvantage that you're stating, which it's kind of hard to buy from my perspective of what you're saying?
Not every shopper in the Kings of Maplewood is a high-end shopper.
No, I'm not saying that, but if the competitive disadvantage is what you're saying from King's perspective, that you're going to be at to another high-end market, Ashley, and so I guess I'm having trouble grasping that disadvantage. Because King's doesn't compete on a price basis. Typically, you compete on product and quality and service and that kind of thing, but you certainly don't compete on a price level.
So does Ashley's and so does Whole Foods.
Right.
And they're not going to be imposing 10 more cents per bag where we are.
Okay.
So that's where the level playing field isn't there anymore. We'll be charging more than people who are very close to us offering a similar service.
Thank you.
So I have a question. There seems to be some, I guess, sense that the Murphy administration is going to support the banning of plastic bags. What's your position if we banned plastic bags before the state did that and just Maplewood banned plastic bags?
Our position is that we prefer you to wait and see what the state does, because then we'll all be competing in a similar way. Okay, so if Maplewood, if the town decides we don't want plastic bags in Maplewood, I applaud your decision, but I would ask you to wait, because if you wait until the state does it, then everybody will be banning plastic bags at the same time. And our industry liaisons seem to think that that is coming down the road, and that's why Murphy vetoed the bill that was before him, because he wants something more aggressive than what was put on his desk. So really, that's what we're really not making a statement about what's good, what's bad, the environment, et cetera. What we're asking for is a level playing field. And that's our biggest, we're coming across this in other towns where we do business. And it just makes it difficult to compete when we're getting one-offs in this town, one-off in this town, especially since we're pretty sure that there's going to be something coming down the road from the state.
Right. But the one-offs might help convince the state that there needs to be a statewide policy. I mean, part of the problem is that if we just sit and wait for the state, it may never happen, or it may happen somewhere down the road. And if we feel a sense of urgency, shouldn't we do something now? And when the state does their thing, hopefully it'll mesh together.
Well, I just hope it's not to the detriment of your retailers.
Right. So, and just one more question. You know, I went in there and into the Maplewood Kings and bought something. I bring a bag in there and you give me a 4-cent credit for my bag, reusable bag. So you've already made an economic judgment that I'm saving you money.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you making a value judgment? I mean, you're giving me 4 cents back. Is that just the cost of a bag?
No, actually, a paper bag costs us 10 cents. So we're trying to be proactive and encouraging people to use reusable bags because we think it's good for the environment.
Right.
Yeah, in that way, we are making a judgment call.
Right. So you are making a judgment call, and we're actually, on the values basis, we're closer together than on the
Under values, yes.
Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry, Mr. McGee.
That was actually my point about the reusable bag, so noted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to address the Township Committee on this?
Hi, my name is Jermaine Cripe, 172 Jacoby Street here in Maplewood. I would like to respectfully disagree with my senior citizens as well as King's Supermarket because of the fact that, as you had pointed out, many grocery stores in the community, not only ours, but Union, Vauxhall, all of them offer some kind of incentive for you to bring your own bag. So as the 10% is maybe a possible detriment for someone who forgets their bag, I meant to bring as an exhibit the bag of bags I have in the trunk of my car. The vast majority of them I was given free by various events that happen in this township, by other grocery stores who, as a promotion, have given bags away to people. So I don't agree with the fact that it would be a financial hardship for our seniors or for people who want to shop at certain grocery stores because too many of us have too many of them in our car. And I will happily give them away because really they're taking over. The second thing I'd like to point out is I'm also a person who walks around this town a lot. And one of the things I see on the regular basis is plastic bags. I used to with my daughter when we walked to Seth Boyden, just that little strip from Jacoby Street on one end to Seth Boyden on the other. We would fill a plastic bag filled with plastic detritus, pop straws, bottle caps, more plastic bags than I can think of. And after a while, my daughter and I got tired of picking it up because we felt like we were the only ones who gave a damn about what was on the ground. So we stopped. But we started to notice also when the rains came that those drains would fill like nothing else. And half the time I would sit there and talk to the people who were cleaning up because I like to talk to the town guys. I do. You guys are great. I would find that the vast majority of the stuff that they were pulling out were tangled leaves and sticks in plastic bags. They cause more environmental problems in our communities than we actually understand and want to agree with. So I think if I was somebody who actually spent a lot of time walking around with my dog, with my child, someone who's proud of how green our city has really been pushing itself to become and to continue to be, then a plastic bag for 10 cents is not a hardship. I don't see it as that. And if it is a hardship, I would also assume that there are probably people in this community that would happily give 10 cents as they go into the store for the bag fund if it ends up being a hardship. That's just how I feel.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Matthew Soloff from Highland Place. And on this issue, I think, environmental leadership requires, smart choices as a community. And I think they don't have to be extreme choices, but I think, laying out an example like this is, a great place for Maplewood to take that kind of position. And I think we've taken this kind of position in a couple of other areas, and we stand out in the state for doing so. And I'll end there, but I think, smart choices is what leadership does. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, Tracy Woods from Maplewood, and I just wanted to say in response to the seniors committee that it's instead of thinking about a fee that everybody has to pay, it's important to remember that you don't have to pay it, that you can bring the bags and then it won't be a hardship, and it's just a new habit. And the data really shows that these type of ordinances really encourage that habit making in a way that publicity campaigns and stuff can't do. That the ordinances are what really change community habits. And so for that reason, I support an ordinance of this type. Now that the pressure is off, we've talked a lot about how we were worried about the state ordinance coming into play. I wonder again if we could, and I'm really hesitant to say this, I'm wondering about looking at making some of the changes that have been brought up and possibly then getting the ordinance in the way that we want it the first time instead of having to change it. Gift wrap has been mentioned. Another thing that I know that Roger talked about, Mr. Desiderio, sorry, is that we could find a way to fund or to do the form for the retailers to pay to the township. I still worry about that. You know, towns like Hoboken and stuff shied away from that, and I wonder if it would be worth it. You know, that if we if we're looking at the ordinance again, I would just point out that that's still something that's in my mind as a concern. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Brenda Clausen for 21 Elmwood. I also just wanted to add my support for Maplewood going ahead and passing the ordinance. As someone who does work as an employer in town, I have noticed that people have mentioned the ordinance, and so they have been bringing more reusable bags and also asking us if we sell them. So it's also increasing some business like local boutiques there for a reusable bag. And also just on the other coast, like Berkeley, California, they have had this as a active practice that people bring reusable bags for quite some time, and they're named in the top 10 greenest cities of the world. So I think it's just one reason why Maplewood would want to move towards being a greener city, and also just in a way that it doesn't have to be something that costs us something, that it just is a shift in lifestyle that people can begin to adapt to, and the sort of charges and incentive that the lifestyle change needs to occur.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Lily Harlock, 49 Midland Boulevard. I do agree with your proposal to charge extra for plastic bags, and I do think that it is a very crucial step in the process towards Maplewood becoming a greener community, because that's an issue that, with everything going on in our country right now, a lot of people are kind of pushing that aside, but it's really something that is really important to me and that really should be addressed more often. And I really don't think it's going to be that much of a struggle for people to start bringing reusable bags, because I know that my mom has a drawer that she just keeps tote bags in and shopping bags just folded up, and there are so many of them. So I'm sure if anyone needs one, she can probably give them one. But it's all in the process of making our world greener, and I think it really is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak on this?
Kirk Kiley, 506 Summit Avenue. I'm now speaking as Kirk Kiley, not as the chair of the Senior Advisory Committee. I would just like to reiterate that this is a regressive tax. If you live up on the hill, like a couple $100,000 a year, you won't even notice this tax. But if you're like the bottom 20% of our citizens in the town, where you're making family makes less than $50,000, you're scraping together pennies. And this 10 cents a bag tax will have a big effect. I grew up in a low-income family. My dad drove around from town to town to save pennies on gas. I know what it feels like. I just wanted to restate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
Anyone else? Okay, the way this works is that when you've all stopped wanting to offer us any thoughts, then we close the public hearing, and then we have a discussion and may take an action. So I'll ask one more time if anyone wants to say anything that they may not have said. If that's why I push it.
Ms. Warrior, did you not know the way this works? She forgot.
I just would like to answer those who say it's just a habit changing issue, and we are changing habits. And I don't disagree that habits can change. It is a little bit more difficult for those in the senior population to change habits. And if I think about my own self and remembering or not remembering to bring my own bags, and while in some circles I am considered a senior, I do tend to punish myself and say, nope, you gotta leave your groceries there and go out and get your bags. A senior may not be able to do that, may not have the wherewithal to do that. I do agree that the additional cost could be onerous on some on a regular basis. I would, even if we did pass this, I would encourage you maybe to amend it to make an exception for seniors. Maybe not seniors like me, but certainly seniors, say 65 and over, just to make allowances for those who don't necessarily change habits as easily as some of us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, so I'm sure that if it is a problem for some people financially, that Maplewood being Maplewood, we can and will start a fundraiser or something to raise money so that people can get the necessary reusable shopping bags that they need. And I'm sure that many people will be happy to donate because to some people it really is not that much or that big of a deal. So I think that if that's an issue, it can definitely be resolved.
Can you say who you are again?
I'm Lily Harlan.
Thank you, Lily.
Thank
I think that the Youth Advisory Committee could work on that fundraiser.
Yes.
Jane Craig, 172 Jacoby Street. I was going to leave a few minutes ago until they brought up that. I always forget my bag. They make them where they fit in your purse, and I know that the vast majority of seniors walk around with personal packages and bags that they use. These don't take up a lot of space in this.
I have that.
And I keep it. It's been sewn several times. I've had it since I lived in Brooklyn for 15 years. Bags, various assortment bags. It's a doable thing. It's absolutely possible. And if you carry your bag, it always looks like that.
Okay. Anyone else?
Yep.
Okay.
That's extremely broke. I'm for church.
Just to, Bernadette Clausen, again, just to maybe make a more proactive approach, and those who are on food stamps or seniors who cannot afford the tax, maybe making an amendment that could offer seniors and those on food stamps in our town a opportunity to get government subsidized reusable bags, so that we are making it a proactive approach to encourage that they do use the reusable bags, but not at a cost to them, where it will still be helpful to our environment.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing. So what we usually need to do, just to move this forward, is we'll need a motion and a second, and then we can start the discussion.
We move it forward to
move-
passage and second and then discuss, or we
Yeah,
discuss
and then we
first?
vote it down and then have to start over if we
Okay.
want to revise it.
Okay.
Mayor, I move this ordinance to be adopted as a whole, the clerk to be directed to publish the same as a passed ordinance, Maplewood South Orange News Record according to law.
Second.
Okay, open discussion. So one thing that has changed since we passed this is the governor vetoed the bill.
Yes.
And the bill that was in the state was a 5-cent fee. And there was actually no prohibition against plastic at any point in that bill.
You mean paper?
No, against the plastic. The bill never outlawed plastic.
Oh, okay.
Our ordinance outlawed plastic 15 months from now, but the state
Oh,
bill-
you mean a
state bill.
sunset? Right, gotcha. Yep.
So
Man.
the word from the governor's office is that, and by the way, the governor's office called me and wanted to know what our bill was. I have no idea why. They just wanted to know what we were doing. But we know that Governor Murphy vetoed the bill, and it appears that he is supporting the legislation of Senator Robert Smith from Middlesex County, which is going to ban plastic bags, plastic straws, and styrofoam. Most of the environmental groups were not in favor of the initial bill that was passed, and they're very happy that Murphy is moving forward with an outright ban of the plastic bags. There was an editorial in yesterday's Ledger by Amy Goldsmith, who's the head of Clean Water Action in New Jersey, and I spoke to her this morning, and what they are suggesting is a ban on the plastics of any sort, because some of the retailers are arguing that their plastic bags are biodegradable or that they're a thicker plastic and they should be allowed. They're saying absolutely not. They also are making the case that to have a fee on the paper bags, because what she says here is replacing one single-use item with another is still a problem, because our ultimate goal, as we say in our ordinance, is to get people to use reusable bags. So I think we ought to think about looking at banning the plastic bags sooner than we had initially thought, since that's coming down. I think we still have to figure out what we want to do about the paper bags. I think there is, as Ms. Woods raised the issue of the fee. In speaking to Amy today, she also said that that fee issue might be difficult if we collect it, because all the other municipalities are just letting the retailer keep that, charging a fee, but letting the retailer do it, because you don't get into this taxation thing. I think there's been some suggestion about exempting seniors, 65 and older. We could take a look at that. And whether we're going to entertain any particular kind of bags that should be exempted, like gift bags or things like that, I think that needs to be discussed. It's clear to me that what we initially proposed needs some revisions.
Yes, absolutely.
So I would not be in favor of passing what we have here tonight. I would be in favor of going back with the parameters that I outlined of banning the plastic bags, figuring out some kind of charge for the paper bags. I don't think it's 10 cents. And I'd let the retailer keep it, exempting the seniors, and figuring out what we're going to do about these special bags.
I agree.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'll step in here. I'm going to vote no in the current form of the ordinance tonight. After talking with our residents and our merchants, I think there's some work that does need to be done. I think some things were highlighted tonight. I would like for us to use a phased approach and separate paper and plastic. I do think if we can get an outright ban on plastic, that would be great. But I do see value in paper currently as it is. I also have a deep concern about the fee for seniors as well. I do agree with the people that spoke tonight. One thing, I talked to Kathy Rowe today, who runs SOMA for Two Towns of All Ages, and she provided me some information. And one opportunity is we have a classic card in our community, and we accept that at various merchants and retailers. And maybe that's a way you present that card. And then if you don't have a bag, then you can receive some type of bag from the merchant or retailer. I think this is an educational process, and we need to continue to educate our residents as well as our merchants. We're trying to also deal with the fact that on a recycling perspective that, there's some recyclables 3 through 7 we talked about that we're not collecting anymore. So there's a lot of happening right now, a lot for our residents to digest. So I'm a little bit concerned about the, now that, Mr. Murphy has vetoed this bill, I think we have some time to catch our breath and step back and start to educate our residents about this process, a phased approach. I think that's the best method here. And I do agree that we need to get rid of plastic. I think we need to look at paper a little bit more. And then also the overall life cycle of recycling. So I look at it as an opportunity. And I don't think it's a defeat tonight if there are 3 people saying no. I think it's more of a continuation of a conversation and moving in the right direction. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, we'll finish up down this way. I agree with what you've said and what Deputy Mayor McGehee said. I think I really like our intentions here. I think our plan, our proposal needs a little bit of revision, as has been pointed out tonight and discussed in a few areas. But I like the direction we're going. I like Maplewood being a leader in environmental issues. I don't necessarily think we have to wait for the state, but I think we need to wait till we have it right. And I don't think we have it right yet. I think it's getting there, but I think that we're getting more expert opinion. We're getting more input from our community. So I think this has been a good process, but I'm not in favor of concluding the process tonight by passing this. I think we can go back and I think we can improve this with what we've learned and what we've heard to make an ordinance that will preserve us as an environmental leader, help us move towards our goals, and some of those goals maybe even quicker than this ordinance would do. But now that we're no longer racing the clock with Trenton, I'd like to take a step back and make this ordinance even better and fair for our community. So I plan to vote no tonight, but it's not because I don't think that the goal here is a good idea.
Yeah, I agree. We need to amend it. I agree with Ms. Woods that we should figure out some of those issues and tighten up the ordinance, and willing to work on that with you. I do think if we're going to encourage reusable bag use and eliminate single-use bags, this has to include paper, and paper has a lot of bad environmental aspects to it as well. It just in the production more than the waste in the landfill and all that. So I'd be in favor of tightening this up. I do think we should look at if New Jersey has problems with figuring out the fee. I just actually forwarded information to the Township Committee on Boulder, Colorado, and how they collect the fee from the merchants and how that's regulated there, as just information to chew on. I do think I understand the plight of the seniors. I think I was joking and also serious that there could be a way to provide reusable bags to seniors in the community. My father also drove like 20 miles to save 2 cents on a gallon of gas. So he trained me to do the same thing. But yeah, so I mean, everybody's got their own issues, but the reality is that our environment is suffering and suffering badly. And it's because of our sort of willingness to take the easy way out and not bring bags, not use reusable bottles, not use, just buying plastic, I think as a whole is, I mean, I'm getting up there. I probably won't be around, but our younger generation and our kids need to count on our earth being here for them. So yeah, I would like to tighten this up, but I do think we need some sort of fee and figure out paper and plastic as well.
Great. So I'm the remaining one here, and I agree with all the comments that were made up here, and I agree with all the comments that were made by our residents and merchants who took the time out tonight to speak about this ordinance. Thank you all very much. Every single comment that was made about this evening was true. This is one of those situations where all of the things stated can be true at the same time. The goal is the same. We all share the same goal, the goal to get rid of single-use disposable plastic bags and paper. They are, as many of you said, a significant environmental threat. And we are, as someone said, exercising leadership to do that in Maplewood, as we have done in the green area, environmental concerns before. We have an award-winning green team and sustainability committee, and they have advised us again tonight very well. That being said, this ordinance as it stands is not good, sound public policy. It's not sound public policy because we have admitted that it needs work. So we're not going to pass a law that we admit at the time of passage needs work. And now that we are not under a time pressure as we were before, so that everybody understands, because not everybody has been in the weeds on this. If Governor Murphy had signed the law, he would have preempted us to do anything locally because it would apply to everyone across the state. My position is, as my colleagues already know, when we first discussed this a couple of months back, I was never in favor of a pass-through fee. A pass-through fee that is collected by the township eventually is a tax. It is regressive. It is a tariff on doing business in Maplewood. And we certainly do not need another tax in Maplewood. And we certainly do not want to make doing business in Maplewood harder. I make these remarks based on conversations that I have had with merchants, some of whom are not here this evening, with residents, and I've done my own research as well to see how other towns and cities across the country have handled this. Yes, we need to change consumer behavior. And the best way to do that is to ban the plastic, outright ban from the beginning, coupled with a fulsome educational effort and campaign to promote reusable bags. As our representative from Kings already stated, merchants are recognizing that there is a moral need here to address this issue, and they're incentivizing their customers to use reusable. And we need to push that forward so that all merchants are doing the same and our residents are educated accordingly to bring reusable bags. Doing it with a fee is not the way to do it. It penalizes our seniors. It stigmatizes our food stamp recipients who are currently exempted under the ordinance, but think about how it stigmatizes them when at the checkout counter, they have to pull out their card to prove who they are, because they don't need to do so when they're purchasing their groceries. They just use a debit card like the rest of us do. But they would have to pull out their ID to prove who they are. That's stigmatizing them. It stigmatizes those who are not on food stamp, but very close to the poverty level. The people that we have in our community, and we do have them, who shop at the dollar store, at Walgreens, at Extra, every single day, a couple times, 3 times a day, and they're going to have to pay that 10 cents. So I think, again, we're all committed to do the right thing, and we will do the right thing. But this currently, as Mr. Lembrick stated very well, is not the right thing right now. So I cannot move forward with its passage. Thank you.
Okay, so please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
No.
Mr. Daffis?
No.
Mr. Lembrick?
No.
Mr. McGee?
No.
Mayor DeLuca?
No.
Ordinance fails.
Okay, so we have our work to do. Thank you. We have an introduction of a new ordinance.
It's Mayor, item number 10, introduction of a new ordinance, ordinance number 2924-18. It's an ordinance to amend Chapter 257 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Vehicles and Traffic. This ordinance will authorize the installation of stop signs on Rutgers Street at the intersection of Lexington Avenue.
This is you.
Okay. Well, sometimes you say something, sometimes you don't. Sometimes I feel like a nut. I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on September 17th.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lambrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Another ordinance on introduction.
Yes, Mayor, item number 11, introduction of new ordinance, ordinance number 2925-18. An ordinance to amend chapter 257 of the Code of the Township of Maplewood entitled Vehicles and Traffic. This ordinance will direct the installation of a stop sign on Berkshire Road at its intersection with Baldwin Road.
Mayor, I move the passage of this ordinance on first reading, its publication according to law in the Maplewood South Orange News Record, and a hearing to be held on September 17th.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lambrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Okay, we're into our discussion items. The first is the affordable housing ordinance. So on the 17th of July, we introduced an ordinance, and then we sent it to the planning board, and this is part of our court settlement with Fair Share Housing. In looking at the ordinance some more, it appears that we were lessening our ability to require new units to be built. Right now, we require 15% if you build apartments. What this new ordinance was doing was saying that it was above the amount that the developer had a right to build. In our zoning, we don't have so many units per acre in our business community and business districts. We have size of lots in our residential, so you have to meet a certain size lot in order to build. But for a multifamily house on Springfield Avenue or Maplewood Avenue, or Irvington Avenue, or any of those business districts, Valley Street, we don't really have a minimum or a maximum number of units per acre. So this ordinance was predicated on the amount of units above this maximum, which we don't have. So this would actually, I think, hinder our ability to say that it has to be 15%, because somebody could come back to us and say, well, we're entitled to build this amount and we're not building above it, so we don't have to provide any affordable units. And our goal is to make sure that in every development, there's an affordable housing obligation. So if somebody came back to us and said, well, I'm allowed to build 10 units, so I shouldn't have to build any affordable units, then the way the ordinance was amended, we would have to agree with them.
I'm not sure I understand that, Mayor.
Okay. So the way the ordinance was written is that the, let me find exactly how we did it.
Let me look at it too.
Mayor, we're talking about the mandatory set-aside ordinance, is that correct?
That's right, 2921-18.
Right.
The project consists of 5 or more new residential units over the number of dwelling units permitted by the underlying or previous zoning. That's the issue. So you'd have to build 5 units above the previous zoning. So if somebody comes in and argues, well, I can put up 10 units, I have enough parking for 10 units, and that's what I'm going to do, we would say, well, our ordinance wouldn't kick in until you did 16 units. So you could build those 10 units and not have to provide any affordable units.
Right.
That's the issue.
That's a loophole, yeah.
Yeah, that is a loophole, yeah.
And so we're coming back with we think we can come back with some language that says a residential portion of a mixed-use project which consists of 5 or more new residential units. That would allow us to do it, because that removes that
language,
bottom line threshold.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
So that has to go to the planning board.
Well, it has to come back here, because
Right.
this ordinance is due back to us at our next meeting.
On the 17th.
So what we will have to do is make sure we have this language in place. We'll amend it, send it to the planning board for their October meeting, and have it come back to us.
So we could finalize it in the second October meeting.
Correct.
Okay.
So I just given you a heads up that because I pulled it from the planning board because I saw that this could lead us into problems, because some sharp developer will come in here and say, I can build.
Oh, for sure.
And I don't have to put any units in there affordable.
Great.
Okay, my second agenda item, review of municipal park closing times. Okay, so I sent you a memo and just said, you know, we have 3 parks that close at dusk. I'm not sure anybody knows what dusk means anymore. So that's the one thing we ought to think about is sunrise and sunset maybe, and then we have D-Hart closes at 10, and I think Memorial is, I don't even remember if we have parts of it that are open certain times and parts that aren't. One of the issues that, and this comes up when we have been meeting with the Borden Park Neighborhood Association, they want us to make sure that we're watching that there's nothing going on negative, no negative behavior in the evening in the park.
Right.
Well, we say, well, the police are supposed to remove anybody who's in the park. Well, then what happens if somebody in the park, somebody in the neighborhood wants to walk their dog, which they often do after dusk? Well, they're not allowed.
Right.
So I think we need to come back, and I would like to recommend this to your committee, Mr. McGee, the Recreation Committee, is to take a look at this and figure out, is there an exemption? I mean, I sent out something that there's when I was in Hawaii, I saw a sign that said park is closed unless you have a permit. So for example, at D-Hart, we could close the park at sunset, and if you have a permit to play on the field with the lights, then you're allowed to be there. But you don't have a right to be on the swings till 10:30 at night doing whatever you're doing.
Do you have to pay for the permit?
No.
Okay.
No, not if you're a Maplewood.
Organized stuff.
Not if you're a Maplewood. So I think if we could kick this back to maybe take a look at our park closing, I think it's also going to be when we talk about a new basketball court in D-Hart, and people hear that the park's open until 10:30, and will people be playing basketball till 10:30, we're going to get some blowback. So if we could take a look at this and then maybe come back to us with some
We have in our
suggestions.
quarterly meeting this month. So
And just, Mr. Mayor, you know, just thinking of this from the Recreation Advisory Committee perspective, you know, one of the issues that we'll have to think about with this is what areas of which parks are lit. Right. And, you know, and when those lights are on, because, you know, to me, this is really a safety issue. You know, it's in addition to bothering people who may live in adjoining areas, you know, if people are, as you said, sort of on the playground equipment or on the basketball court or on the swings after dark in an area where there's no lights, you know, they can hurt themselves. They could also be victims of crime,
right?
In those areas. You know, so I think we have to, you know, in doing this with the Recreation and Human Services Committee, you know, think about where are the lights and when are the lights on. And one of the issues that I know we're going to have to work through with the community and with the Township Committee with the, you know, the proposed basketball facility at D-Hart is, are we going to have lights at that facility? If we are, what are the hours going to be? So these are things we're going to have to think through, but you know, it's a one-size-fits-all solution is clearly not right here, because, you know, the Memorial Park has, you know, the lit tennis courts and the lit basketball courts, and other parks have no lights at all,
right?
Or at least, you know, only lights on the perimeter. So we'll have to come up with what makes sense based on the facilities we have and the uses and the available lighting, as well as the, you know, the needs of the community and the wishes of the community. So I think that's something that, you know, that we can work with at Recreation and Human Services and come back to this committee with some recommendations.
Great.
Should it go before public safety too?
Well, I think you can come up with some parameters and then check with, you're going to have to check with legal, you have to check with the police, get some input from everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually, I think that's a good idea, Ms. Adams. I don't think it's ready for next week's Public Safety Committee meeting. You know, I think that if we're going to take this to, you know, to the chief and the deputy chief, they'll probably want a little bit more of an idea of what we have in mind. You know, but I know that, you know, in the past when we've talked about, you know, certain issues with the parks, they've definitely raised the issue of,
Right.
you know, if you're going to have something in the parks, you're going to allow people to use the parks, it has to be well lit enough, because otherwise, you know, people who are in a poorly lit park or any really poorly lit area after dark are at increased risk of being victims of crime.
Or even just tripping over a big
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, certainly of risk to themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
But also at risk to others.
So we'll take this back for the meeting toward the end of this month, and we'll address it, and we can kick it back to public safety. We posted on both those committees.
All right, thank you. Third is the marijuana legislation. I sent you a copy of a letter that Mayor Baraka wrote from Newark, and I thought there were some good points here that we might want to think about, whether we're interested in sending something similar. The whole social justice piece in particular, and that is that people who were convicted of possession and distribution of marijuana should have their records expunged, that people who are in jail should be released for this. And they talk about the people who are who have convicted should not have that conviction be used to prevent them from getting a license to work at or own a marijuana distributor or operation. And then it talks about the social impact zones, that funding to go back to communities to train residents in the business. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at this. I don't know if you had some thoughts. So I'll just leave it at that and see what people have to say.
I agree with including some of these provisions in our local, ordinance when we get to the point of outlining what we're going to require for anyone who's going to want to do business in Maplewood. I think the social justice piece of this is the whole idea behind legalization and decriminalization. So some of these points that the mayor makes are good ones. I support them.
So, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if I'm seconding a motion that you haven't made, but to the extent that you would be proposing, or anyone would be proposing a motion for a resolution that we would send to our state representatives and to the state legislature, making points similar to Mayor Baraka's, I would certainly second and vote for that resolution.
I think this is a great idea by Mayor Baraka. Bottom line, it's really an issue of racial issue. I mean, people of color have been incarcerated because of use or possession of marijuana for years. They're crowding up our jails, and technically speaking, that's a cost, and it's also a detriment to their own livelihood and their families. So I absolutely agree with Mayor Baraka's proposal here and would support it 100%.
So what I would suggest is I would make a motion to develop a statement on behalf of the Township Committee, which I'll run by everybody, using the points that Mayor Baraka has put forth in his letter.
I second that.
Are you addressing also his financial part of it?
I can address the financial part too, yes.
Okay.
I'm not sure that
Yeah, the number, I mean, they're kind
the
of
number, I think
arbitrary.
we should just talk about the, state tax revenue going to municipalities. I don't know if we need to be on. I'll draft something, and then you can all take a look at it.
Great.
So that's a motion, a second, that we draft something along the lines of Mayor Baraka's letter to send to our legislators. So please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes, thank you. Okay, next up, we have the event application, and number 4 and 5 are the same. The use of the west side of the Woodland and the event application for the Soma Latino.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, the event application and whoever put the application is totally irrelevant. It's really about the use of the west side of Woodland. It could have been the Oyster Fest for as far as I was concerned. So I want to make sure I'm clear on that. It has nothing to do with Soma Latino or any cultural organization in that regard. Just the conversation that we had, online regarding the use of the west side lawn. I just wanted to have a broader conversation, a public discussion about that. I had reached out to Mr. Fishman to get some more information about renovation use of the west side lawn, and he had communicated, and I know he shared with Ms. Riveros as well, that this has been long discussed. He has submitted some plans to the Historic Preservation Commission in June of 2018 for a request of any issues, whatever, and no objection was raised in the use of the west side lawn. So I think it's an opportunity to enhance the experience of the woodland and to use that part of the lawn for events in the future.
I'd like to clarify those remarks regarding the
Absolutely.
Historic Preservation Society. As their liaison, I have certainly raised this point with them, and while they have not formally stated a position, I have received some comments from certain members as residents and not as commissioners. Certainly, the Historic Preservation Commission has been a great guide to recent developments at the woodland overall, including the re-landscaping of the west lawn, or the west side, if you will. Even though their jurisdiction ends at, the lot of the building, yeah. But they have certainly advised engineering and planning about the landscaping. And my position about this is absolutely it enhances the woodland. It's a beautiful space, but I do think that we should have some sort of regulated maintenance provision on using that side of the woodland, so that it's not always for everything. There's discretion after, a terrible rain soak. Certainly we shouldn't have it there. I do think we have to think going forward, now that it's been re-landscaped and it looks really great, that it doesn't just become a free-for-all like the asphalt and parking lot side have become.
I totally agree with that. I think my concern was not to use it at all. I think we should leverage.
Oh, certainly. But I do think that there needs to be some sort of regulated use.
I think I agree with Mr. Davis. I think it should not only be regulated, but we need to, I don't know that I agree with Mr. McGehee whether or not we should use it just because it's there or as an asset. I think we need to be careful of the use of the woodland. We want to use it. We want to generate the money to cover the costs of operating woodland and all that goes with it. And it's a wonderful asset that we've been using, but I caution that too many events at one time, because you could conceivably have one on the west lawn, one in the parking lot, one in the parlor, one in the main auditorium. I worry about the parking that goes with that. I worry about the condition of a re-landscaped lawn and the wear and tear on it. So I think before we start just using it, I think there do need to be some parameters.
I just think we should use it. I'm also, we've made an investment in this facility and we need an ROI on it, right?
No, I'm not disagreeing with you.
So just the example you gave is never going to happen, because we're never going to, this is not a place that an event would happen independent of the building.
Correct. It'll be an
So
extension.
No, I understand that.
Okay. So for example, somebody having a wedding there or a shower there or something might go out there and take pictures. We've had a couple of events inside the Great Hall where we put tables out there, even before, where they were able to eat out there, because there's just, part of the problem is, it goes back actually to the use of the building. It's so popular now and groups want to use it that it's just getting tight in there. And I think that's a bigger conversation of the woodland, and we can have that conversation with them, but it'll never be that it should never be that there would be 4 events going on at one time. There's usually generally 2 events going on or 1 event going on.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. I think there need to be set parameters, because it's not always going to be the same people running it, and you know, we just need to have something laid out, I think, Mr.
Well, we can
Vance.
work on it, but just, yeah, I think your point about there are conditions. It's not like the parking lot where you have runoff and stuff and you don't have, but there's certainly conditions on the west side where you wouldn't be able to use it because of weather issues. There's snow that we're not going to plow, for example.
Right.
Where we would plow the parking lot and things like that.
I think you have to think about the limitation of the space because we have an exterior staircase that's going to be eventually put out there. So, I mean, how much of use can you get out of it? I've also been there recently when we were doing the elevator and some of the events that have been going on. There's a lot of debris out there too. So, I would stay clear of some of those.
I think the debris is going to be gone. We have to think about post debris. The debris is never going to stay there forever.
Right, but this was party debris. This was not. This was not elevator debris.
Oh, okay.
So that was just my concern about that.
We'll talk with him. I think we can certainly. There's also the what's coming up, the
Oyster Fest.
Oh, the Oyster Fest doesn't use that side. No, it's coming up in October.
The Oktoberfest?
No, anyway, but there's a couple. Yeah, Diwali. Thank you.
Diwali, yeah.
You know, they had wanted to use it because they were just packed last year. So
They actually used it last year.
yeah, they did use it.
I don't know.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
right.
you had
That
to sit outside.
that may have been with the table. Yeah.
remembered.
Right. So let's see what goes on. Let's talk to Andrew and get this clarified. It should not be considered a separate place to rent, another venue. It should be part of the
Yeah.
building there for accessory uses.
Yeah, I agree. I think the most important thing is I didn't want it not to be used at all because of other issues.
Right.
such as Historical commission. Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Partial tax payment.
Yes, as has been noted in the public recently, there is now this, communication about the payment of taxes from a quarterly basis versus an annual basis. And I think in the interest of our public, there was an article that came out, and I'm going to turn to Mr. Viveros to talk more about this. I want.
Just clarify, right? Stop for you.
Yeah.
No. It's not it's not quarterly to annual. It's always quarterly.
Yes.
It's the partial payments each quarter.
That's what I meant, partial payment.
Okay, people were making payments in between the quarters. And our new tax collector said that her professional opinion was that we should not be taking those payments because payments are due on those 4 quarterly dates. And you cannot make partial payments towards those quarterly dates. Whether or not we can accept partial payments, we can. There's no prohibition. But she thought best practices, and she said to us in South Orange, she didn't do it, is because she wants to make sure that there's no confusion when the tax is due, that the tax is due, and no one thinks that the tax has been partially paid, and therefore they didn't have to pay it when it was due. So it doesn't affect anybody this only affects people who paid directly. It affects no one who pays through their bank.
Okay.
Because you're paying every month for your mortgage and your taxes are in there. It only affects people who paid directly, and she was concerned that there could be some taxpayers might come, and you tell me if I'm wrong or not. Some taxpayers might come and say, well, I know I was supposed to pay on November 1st, but I paid 50% of it already or 75% of it, so why am I being charged interest and penalties? Well, the state doesn't allow that partial payment to be in lieu of the full payment that was due on that November 1st.
Correct. And by ordinance that we haven't, pressed on much, we do have an ordinance that tax payments have to be paid in full. Not to say that at our discretion, we haven't accepted it, because even after we've told the public that that's something that we're going to not be doing, is taking in those partial payments, there is a case-by-case assessment. So
let me understand this a little bit better. So our ordinance says payment in full due by the due date in that quarter, correct?
Correct.
And
it's
state statute. State
Gotcha. The state, excuse me. I want to be precise. Exactly.
state
And,
standard.
and we have allowed, but we have accepted partial payments during the quarter up till the due date, right? And what we're discussing this evening is not allowing partial payments in between quarters.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
That was,
Does that happen now?
That's happening, yes. Since we've had the new tax collector, it's been happening.
no.
Well,
It's always
what do
been
you
happening.
Since we had a new tax collector, she implemented a policy of not taking
Right.
the
The
partial payments in between the quarter.
So a resident comes in and we reject their payment?
We do not, well, in what sense? Reject it completely because
For
they're,
this month, I'm paying, they come in.
we're not taking that, not unless it's, there's
Full
some,
amount.
right.
Not unless it's the full amount. I think the crux of the problem is if the full amount is not paid on the due date, November 1st or within whatever the grace period is, which is a 10-day grace period, I believe, statutorily.
Yes.
The person's going to be charged the full interest and penalty on the full amount,
Right.
regardless of the partial payment they've made or not.
Right.
So if
That-
they owe $3,000 and they paid $2,000 and they owe $1,000, on the due date, they're going to pay interest and penalties on the $3,000.
And they come and argue that I've already
They've
paid
already paid
2,000 of it.
$2,000.
So therefore,
So she-
whatever you're charging me should only be on the 1,000. And we say, no, we have to charge you on the 3,000. It gets to be
And that's the
an
problem.
issue.
So she's saying, in order to, I believe what she said, I haven't spoken to her
Correct.
directly, but I think she's saying is in order to avoid this controversy, it's better to not accept partial payments
At all,
at all.
even during the quarter.
Correct.
That's, yeah.
So when
That's what I
have-
believe she's saying.
So
Okay, that makes it super clear. So as a resident comes in, so what is the process? I'm a resident. I'm used to doing this. I owe $3,000, $1,000. I come to hand you $1,000 check. What do you do to me as a resident?
She's not taking in the payment.
So you will not take my page, right?
No.
I'm a little concerned about this. I understand the state law. I understand the tax assessor's position as well. But am I wrong in thinking that the folks who are making partial payments, even within the quarter, are some of our seniors who are waiting on that check to come in and do it when they can?
There are some circumstances, but we're taking it on a case by case basis. So if there's a situation where we could do the partial payment, we'll do that. There's nothing
Overall,
to say
not
that.
just the policy, like, basically you want to cut it down to just
Right.
individual.
She's doing that now in South Orange. She's not doing anything different than what she's doing there, so.
So if this resident comes in with their $1,000 to pay 1/3 of their quarterly payment, are we providing them with some type of notice document in hand saying?
It's documented.
We're taking this today, but you still owe us 2,000. If you
Right.
don't, we're gonna tax you on the whole lot.
Right.
Okay.
no, we're not giving,
No.
we don't give that. We don't give that.
We're not giving a
We're-
notice.
No, it's accounted in our finance.
How are we letting the resident know that if you're only paid only 1/3 of your payment, if you don't pay the other 2/3 by the end of the quarter, you will still get, as Mr. Desiderio said, are we letting our residents know that even though you're paying us some of it, if you don't pay all of it by the end of the quarter, you're gonna get taxed on the whole?
Well, we certainly do when we send out tax bills.
Right.
The tax bills clearly say the due dates for the payments. And it says if you're not paid by that date, okay, then you're going to be charged interest on the amount. All right? So the issue is, and I don't know procedurally what other tax collectors do, and I was unaware of any of this until this discussion tonight. All right? But what I'm gathering from what the mayor is saying, she's saying it's a matter of policy. She's suggesting,
Correct.
in order to avoid controversy on a go-forward basis, to not accept partial payments.
Correct.
What is the controversy?
The controversy is when somebody owes $15 over what they otherwise have paid, they're going to get charged the full amount on the taxes due.
But they know that, right?
I don't know that they know that.
That's my point. I don't think we're letting them know theoretically that when you're coming in with this check for $1,000 and you still owe 2,000 or whatever your difference is, if you don't pay it in full, we're not saying,
Can I make
hey,
a suggestion?
you know.
Could I
So
make a
my point
suggestion? I'm
is
sorry.
there, maybe we should provide, if we're going to accept, if we were to accept any payments, that we still communicate, well, you have a balance of X left and you must pay it in full or you will be taxed or penalized on the entire, it's an extra document, but I think we need to over communicate until people understand.
Mr. Desiderio, you were going to make a suggestion.
I was going to suggest that we get a memo from the tax collector specifically articulating her position with regard to this. So that you are better informed about what her concerns are. Because what I'm saying is conjecture.
That's exactly what she's going to tell you.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I
That's
think
exactly what it is.
It's
She's looking to avoid any kind of confusion or any problem that would occur if someone did not pay their taxes in full. So if you owe $12,000 over the course of the year, somebody wants to come in and pay $1,000 a month. So the first quarter you're supposed to pay $3,000, second quarter $3,000, third quarter $3,000. People want to pay $1,000 a month. First of all, it's a bookkeeping responsibility for us. We have to make sure that it comes in. We have to do all that. So there's an actual cost of us doing that, labor of us doing that. And then if something happens, if somebody pays $1,000 in September, $1,000 in October, and doesn't pay the $1,000 in November, we go back and charge them for the $3,000. And they come and say, well, I paid you $1,000 in September and $1,000 in October. You should only be charging me interest on $1,000.
Yeah, it can
Doesn't
really
work that
get
way.
messy.
the other problem is that the way we pay our taxes in New Jersey is we pay on the first day of the second month of each quarter, which in itself is a confusing factor.
Yes.
So if I pay the $1,000 on the first month, I pay $1,000 on the second month, I'm already behind. Okay? So that's another issue with regard to receiving partial payments.
Right. So overall, and I don't know if we have this data right now, are we behind in collecting our taxes? Or are we okay?
We've always been.
No, we're fine.
Well, we've always been at 90.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I need more
There's
information for this.
There's an accounting issue on the back end of it when you're having to collect taxes and having to keep tabs on it. It's the same idea when people were prepaying their taxes because of what was forthcoming, or people thought.
No, it's not the same idea. It's not the same.
That's how it was brought to my
No, it's not the same idea.
So I guess here's a question. Do we know what percentage of our residents are paying month to month versus?
We can find that out.
I think that's
let's get the
that's
information.
the data.
I'm not sure it was
very high or whatever.
very high, but
yeah.
Historically, we
I
can
know
go
it's
back.
counterintuitive to not accept money.
But
Yes.
but one question I do have though is, Ms. Veros made this statement, and I'd heard this before, that we generally, our policy is not to accept, but we do it sometimes on a case-by-case basis. And that's something I have a problem with, because, if you start making exceptions to the rule, the exception can swallow the rule, and someone can say, well, you did it for me last time, or you did it for my neighbor. And I don't think we should be in the business of, and we should have a policy, and we should enforce the policy, or we shouldn't have the policy.
I think that's what happened. I think what happened was we had a policy, and then the policy was ignored.
Yeah.
And people they were allowed to pay, and then more and more people started to pay. I mean, I don't know, the news record put it on the front page. I don't know why it was even newsworthy, but I mean, it was a professional,
never been their
our
standard.
tax collector made a professional judgment. Now, if we don't agree with that, we have the right as the governing body to overturn that. So what I would suggest is if we can get the information that people need, find out how many people were paying partial. This is not like anybody's in jeopardy. People are just prepaying their taxes.
Yeah.
And they don't have to put, they can put the money in the bank and then pay in November.
And
So it's not like it's like they're using us as a bank. They're coming like, it's like a Christmas club. They're coming and paying $1,000, $1,000, $1,000.
And that's fine. Okay, except what happens when the person wants to come in and wants to pay $300? Okay, they want to pay every payday, and they want to come in and pay
Right,
$300.
that's where our cost, that becomes a cost.
Accounting and bookkeeping nightmare.
Right.
Yet we were about to pass an ordinance that would create an administrative burden where we have to track 7 cents on every plastic bag and paper bag that is used, sold, consumed in Maplewood Township.
Operative word
That was a different department. That was in the tax levy.
Operative word was about to.
I know, but I'm just saying, I think we should think about this big picture. I'd like more information from our assessor. Collector, sorry. And, you know, there are people who pay that way because that's how they can pay. But they need to know that the consequences are X, Y, and Z.
Yeah, what's our exposure?
Yeah.
I mean, the important thing for me is whatever the policy is going to be, I'd like for the policy to be well understood and communicated to the public, and I'd like for it to be consistently enforced.
Correct.
And, you know, because I think almost any policy is fair if everyone knows about it and understands it, and it applies to everyone.
Agreed.
So, that's my priority here.
So we will put this back on for discussion at the next meeting.
Yes, Mayor.
Okay? Thank you. PTO donations.
Mayor, a while ago, we talked about, there was an issue or an issue that came up where an employee was ill, and we didn't know exactly how much time they were going to need, and it happened within one of our departments, and some of the employees there decided that, or were making an effort to help this employee in donating some of their time. Luckily, this person is well, and we didn't have to address this necessarily, but I think it would be prudent to actually have some sort of policy and pass through resolution, a donated leave program for employees if a situation like this were to come up again. I circulated a draft to everyone. I don't know if everyone got a chance to read it.
I think it's,
Is that what today?
no, well, it was circulated a while back.
Yeah, it's a while.
Well, it was a while.
But I think it was sent out again today, right?
It was part of it should have been part of the packet, but.
The one issue here is, I'm not sure that we can include the library in here because the library has a separate board. So I think we have to cut the library out of that. And then it raises a question for me is, would the library director and the other non-union employees at the library be eligible to receive other department heads' time? So we'd have to do some kind of agreement with the library board if we wanted to do that, which I think we should.
We should, yeah, all across the board, yep.
And then we can encourage the library board to pass it for the CWA, their employees there. So did people have a chance to look at this? Because I know it came out late.
No.
Okay. So we're gonna have to put this on for next meeting.
Okay.
Another one. And put it as, not PTO, nobody's gonna know what that is. Put, paid time off donations, that's what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Oh, I thought it was parking traffic officer.
Okay. Motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we adopt, sorry.
I do have a couple questions
Oh, I'm
about.
sorry.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, Mr. Lundberg. I wanted to ask a couple of questions regarding resolutions number 17 and 18, 19218 and 19318 respectively. Ms. Viveros, what is the difference between these two?
They're two different vendors, so we have to treat them separately. They're getting charged the same account, but.
And this relates to playground equipment identified that needs service or replacement in all of our parks?
This was a capital expense, so yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Motion. Mayor, I'd like to move adoption of items number 1 through 21 of the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion on anything? Please call the roll.
Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Mr. Daffis?
Yes.
Mr. Lembrick?
Yes.
Mr. McGehee?
Yes.
Mayor DeLuca?
Yes. Public comment, there's no one here.
We had such.
We've received the chief financial officer's budget reports, administrative reports. Ms. Viveros.
Mayor, just have a couple of things that are going on now that we've come back from our warm weather, but continued nonetheless. Just a couple of things, and over at the Woodland, we are finishing that elevator project. So we're slowly but surely cleaning that up. We have an employee picnic coming up on Friday, so township offices will close at, is it 12:30? And one of the other things on September 15th regarding DPW, there will be a bulk drop-off day. And more importantly, on September 25th, we have a residential recycling seminar, and that stems from some of the major changes that's been happening in the recycling industry. So we have a guest speaker, Wayne DeFeo of DeFeo and Associates. So I'd just like to, we'll resend out a notice to residents just to let them know that it's coming forth.
That's at the Woodland at 7:30 at night?
The Woodland at 6 to 8:30.
6 to 8.
What date was that again?
September 25th. It's called Residential
I have
Recycling
it.
Seminar. Okay. And we have 2 adult health clinics. They've become popular, so we'd like to continue that. Wednesday, September 12th from 3:30 to 5 p.m. over at Hilton Library. The other one is on Thursday, September 13th at 10 a.m., and that's at from 10 a.m. to noon in Town Hall. And that's all I have.
Any questions? You're not going to talk about the farmer's market?
It happened that yesterday at the farmer's market, what we were told some vendors were coming, but in fact, Jason went to go check on and they were not there. So they decided to not come. I'm not sure what the reason was, but
Labor Day?
other than Labor Day.
Okay.
But
okay.
Yeah. But we do have a couple things coming up for the farmer's market. That being said, we have there's a new food truck vendor that's coming for the month at least. Not really a food truck, but more of a, they've got the wood burning stove, but they've promoted themselves as having some sort of service of that nature. So any other new vendors that we have?
We have a bookseller, and then also I believe we're bringing in somebody selling their apple butter, locally made.
Cool. How did this, do you know how the second pop-up bike shop worked?
Last week.
Yeah, it was last week, and it wasn't as much of a line as the first one. I remember the first one we had people coming at 2 o'clock waiting in line for almost 2 hours. This time it was busy, but there wasn't as, I don't want to say it wasn't as much as demand, but there, when I got there, it was busy, just not as packed.
Right, okay. Thank you. Mr. Desiderio?
I just have one item, Mayor, just to bring you committee up to date. Mr. Bell had indicated to me that the marketer of recyclables had issued a back charge against the township for effectively contaminated recyclables because of plastic bags that were incorporated. I sent a letter to the collector, recycling collector, and received a response from him, and clearly repeated what Mr. Bell had told him in the past, and that is that they are not to collect any recyclables that are in plastic bags. If they open a container and plastic bags are in it, they're to leave the recyclables. I saw Mr. Bell today. He advised me that that policy seems to have worked well based on his spot checking, although they did get about 100 calls at DPW from residents complaining about the recyclables not being picked up. So it's being enforced. I just want you to let you know. You may get some information about it, but the recycling pickup company has been instructed not to do it. So if they open the can and they find a plastic bag in there, they're leaving them.
Great. Yeah, I noticed a lot of recyclables and plastic bags on Baker after recycling trucks had come through that were left, even though the containers were there. I told Mr. Bell today too, because we had a meeting this morning, that the stickers that he gave Basso to let residents know why it was sitting there and thus reduce the number of phone calls, were not on any of the bags that were left. So.
Well, that's a good idea, just poor execution.
Yeah. Right. Well, you know, in all fairness, though, you know, these guys are coming through and they want to get through picking up everyone's recycling, and they're not going to always stop to put stickers on bags.
Well, apparently they have done it on some. I think they put them on some of the containers, but I'm not sure they're able to put them on the plastic bags. But Mr. Bell seemed satisfied this afternoon when we met with him that it was that it was working. So, you know, kind of to reiterate what has been said here earlier. It's an educational function.
Absolutely.
And those recyclables can certainly be recycled next Monday.
Of course.
Okay, so there's, it's not like or they could be brought to DPW.
Right.
So it's not like you have them forever and you can never get rid of them. So it's just a question of education.
And that's 100 calls from people who now, 100 people who are now educated better about the rules.
Exactly. It's the best way
It's
to
a good thing.
educate them. Yeah.
So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Fritzen?
4 quick items, Mayor. Just to remind you, this is our final meeting for the summer here. Our next meeting is going to be on a Monday, September 17th at Town Hall. It's been enjoyable here as always. It's time to go home.
Hey, it's good
Can we go to number 2, Mrs. Fritzen?
Yeah. Yeah, number 2, 3, and 4,
My item
please.
number 2 is that I want to report, and I did send you an email, but I want to report that we do have a defibrillator at our final Township of Maplewood building at the 1978 Arts Center. It was installed last week. And I'm kind of proud that we've been able to cover every township building with this important piece of equipment that I hope we will never use. Item 3, we're going to have an event meeting. As you know, I've been convening event meetings for our larger events. And tomorrow the event meeting is with the Rent Party for their family picnic. And I just had to squeeze it in quickly. It's been a short week. And everybody will be there that represents the departments as well as the organizers. I don't see this one as probably having any great needs. Following that, next week, I'm going to be having a HOLA meeting, and also the cultural festival meeting that's going to be, you know, it's a 50-50 whether or not that event's going to come off, but that will be at Maple Crest Park. And of course, the other ones at the Woodland. And then my last item is just to alert people that the greenhouse space sign up is on Thursday. And that takes place at the municipal building. And doors to the township committee room open at 4 to sign up and get your spot for a bench space for the season coming up. It's really a bargain, $30 from October until May. So Maplewood residents only. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mayor, I'm sorry, I just wanted to mention, I don't know if many of you noticed that the red stripe has been painted over at the crosswalk?
I was going to report about it, but.
Oh,
go
okay,
ahead and
I'm
do it.
sorry. They do have to come back for the pink though, because these are specialty items, so, so they came in and it was really done within the hour, you know, it took half hour to dry and then the roads were open again, so.
Okay, great. So, reports from elected officials. Mr. Daffis.
I have no report,
Other
Mayor.
than the red stripe.
Other than the red stripe, to say that the red stripe has now been thermoplastically applied as we had promised residents was going to be the case eventually. We're happy that the contractor was back to do so. This is residents should know that there aren't many contractors who are experienced in this kind of treatment. There are a few national ones, and the one that we've engaged with is a national one as well. So it's very hard to get them on occasion to come back and touch this up. So the red is down, and they didn't get to the purple, rather the pink, excuse me. But the good thing is the pink was thermoplastically applied the first time around, so they're filling the holes and the gaps here and there. Should take less than an hour as well when they're able to return. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Mr. McGehee.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Couple items. First, I'd like to let our residents know that I'll be doing my office hours, walking with some of our law enforcement officers this Saturday, the 8th. I'll be on Jacoby, Boyden, Newark Way, Harding, and Brown. So if you're home between hours of noon to 3, I'll be knocking on doors and taking your concerns and just meeting you with officers. We have the rent party picnic, which Ms. Fritz and I articulated, coming up on the 8th, this Saturday. I think it starts at 3 to 9.
No, noon
8. So
yes,
that's going to be a great event. All 5 of us will be there. Also at 11 a.m. we have the dog event at the pool. So Sunshine will be there along with other great canines of Maplewood. On the 15th, we're going to, in Newstead, there'll be the Achieve Run. It's a wonderful 5K event. It's for, charity. It's a wonderful organization. And I know myself and most of my colleagues will be there as well. And then finally, the Oyster Fest is happening on the 15th Saturday as well in September. It's a great event. We've talked about before. I ask that all Maplewood comes out and enjoy this wonderful event. And then finally, our kids are going back to school in the coming days. I ask our residents to be careful with their driving, as the kids will now be hitting the streets, crossing those crosswalks and heading to school. So just be a little more cognizant now that our youth, our most important asset in this town, will be hitting the streets in the coming days. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Adams.
Yes, Mayor. Wanted to reiterate the recycling and plastic bags was on my list. They're not being picked up, so residents should be aware, as you may have just heard, that if they're in plastic bags, your recycling will be left at the curb. It needs to be in reusable containers. We are in the process, or should be soon, installing 2 public charging stations at the Woodland for electric cars, electric vehicles, donated by DCH Milburn Audi, and also installed by, we got grant money for that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
That's one charger that charges 2 cars, not 2 chargers,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
Just to be
2
clear.
spaces, I guess, is
Correct,
what I want.
correct.
The decorative fence on Baker Street that we just passed a resolution funding will be installed hopefully this month. That'll run just for the public's edification along the sidewalk, between the sidewalk and the curb, along the north side of Baker. So if you're from Donnell Road behind the middle school, under the train tracks to the corner of Maplewood Avenue.
Isn't that the south side?
South side, sorry.
Okay.
And that's intended in large part for pedestrian safety, so commuters be aware that you won't be able to just kind of spread out across Baker Street on the way to the train, so give yourself that extra 20 seconds or whatever it takes. Also, South Orange is holding their 2nd annual invitational golf outing at shotgun start at 1 o'clock on Monday, September 17th. It benefits the South Orange Rescue Squad, and that is something that benefits Maplewood residents as well, since we have joint response. So that's September 17th, and you can find it by Googling it on South Orange Annual Invitational Golf Outing. It's East Orange Country Club, I believe. And Joe Manning sends his regards. I was lucky enough to have spontaneous burgers and lobster and at his place in Wellfleet on Cape Cod last weekend. So that was fun.
we heard.
Yeah. Huh?
I didn't, but I
You
heard
heard.
it just now.
Of course.
I didn't know you heard. Anyway, it was fun. It was great to see him. He's looking good, and
I got no invitation.
he's enjoying the well, you might not have told me you were there.
Yeah.
I just texted him and said I was in the area. So he's like, great, come on over. Free meal.
Mr. Lindbergh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Want to wish a great school year to all of our teachers, students, and parents as kids go back to school this week, and reiterate what Deputy Mayor McGee said. Please be safe, be patient. The first few days, particularly as kids are figuring out their routes to school, as parents are dropping off, as bus drivers are figuring out their routes. Please just be patient. Give yourself a few extra minutes to get to the train or to get to work or wherever you're going for the safety of our kids. The pool had its last day of operation for our members yesterday. We had a great pool season, and as Deputy Mayor McGee mentioned, we have our Dog Days of Summer event this Saturday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. So bring your dogs. This is a day where only dogs are allowed in the pool. So please don't come preparing to swim yourself, and certainly don't prepare your kids to swim because they will be disappointed. The pool on Saturday is dogs only. A few reports from the Public Safety Committee on traffic enforcement. I reported at our last meeting about the first 2 weeks of our enforcement initiative of our new traffic bureau and their blitz. I wanted to give some statistics for the next month of the blitz. And that ran from July 11th through August 7th. These are the most recent statistics that we've been given. There were, in terms of traffic enforcement, the focus was on Prospect, Springfield, and the Village. In total, they ran 95 details during that 4-week period in those areas and issued nearly 100 summonses. Then on radar details, the focus was on Burnett, Springfield, Valley, and Prospect. In total, for Springfield, there were 48 traffic enforcement and radar details, resulting in 53 summonses. And on Prospect, which was our big target, we had 85 details and issued 55 summonses. So I think that our new traffic bureau has been out there. They've been very busy. Our officers, even outside the traffic bureau, have been busy in traffic enforcement and radar details to make our streets safer for pedestrians and other motorists. And they've clearly gotten the message from the Township Committee and the Public Safety Committee that this is a major priority for Maplewood residents to enforce our traffic laws and make our streets safer. On crime generally, I'm pleased to report that thus far this year, robberies are down 27%. Assaults are down nearly 50%. They're down 48%. Thefts are down 17%. The one area where we've really had a major increase is motor vehicle theft has doubled from last year, but in an overwhelming majority of those cases, the keys were in the vehicle. So just another reminder to our residents, please, if you're gonna have your car parked on the street or in your driveway or anywhere around town, whether you lock your doors or not, do not leave your keys in the car because nearly all the cars in town that have been stolen this year have had their keys in them. So, don't volunteer to be a victim by leaving your keys in your car. Finally, our community board on police. We have our candidates who've applied. We're interviewing candidates later this month. However, we did not receive any applications for the youth position on the community board on police, and that's for a non-voting member between the ages of 16 years old and 22 years old. So if there's anyone out there in that group who's interested, we invite you to apply. Was very pleased tonight that we were able to appoint 5 new members to the Recreation Advisory Committee. We're looking forward to a great fall, including, as I mentioned earlier, our upcoming community forums to discuss the proposed basketball facility to be located in DeHart Park. And finally, to echo what Deputy Mayor McGee, he said, come out to the Rent Party Family Picnic this Saturday, Maple Crest Park, noon to 8. It's going to cool down by this weekend. They're looking at temperatures in the mid 70s, mostly sunny. So it's going to be a beautiful event. And it's always great local music for a great local cause. And Mr. Mayor, that is my report.
Great, thank you. I have 3 items. First, my office hours are next Tuesday, September 11th at Town Hall in my office from 7 to 8. Next Thursday, the 13th of September at 7:30 PM at the Woodland, there's going to be a follow-up meeting to the Baker Street proposal. And our engineer will present the changes that he's been working on. And then lastly, I would just like to report that Maplewood was included by a firm for location of an alternative treatment center for, this is medical marijuana. The applications were due at the state on the 31st of August. They've located a facility on Springfield Avenue. They've met our zoning requirements. So we'll see what happens. The decision will be made sometime by November. And there's 6 that will be in the state, 2 will be in the north. So it's pretty heavy competition, but we do have one firm that has selected Maplewood for the site. With that, if there's nothing else, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we'll see you on Monday, September 17th at Town Hall.
After.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
13th.
Yeah, I might be late for that meeting.
Is that scheduled? I'm gonna go to Town Hall?
I got Andrew, the baker.
Sure.
Is it scheduled? Yes. Paul is scheduling it. No, it's scheduled. It's the 13th at 7:30.
At night?
What? School starts Thursday.
Thursday. And then,
Freshman and
and then off to
Woodland.
Yeah.
I never saw
We
that
never put
either.
it out. I don't know.